Okay, so I'll start out with just a quick overview before we get into everything in greater detail. But we'll start out with the uterine horn. So that's up here, and then connected to the uterine horns, it goes down into the uterine body. And then another important piece of the bovine reproductive tract are the ovaries, which are these right here. And then next to the ovary, we have the oviducts, which this side isn't the greatest, but this side is a little bit better. And then the oviduct contains the fimbria, infundibulum, ampulla, and isthmus, which we'll get into in greater detail in a little bit. And also the bovine is monotachous, so the ovaries are a little bit more almond shaped. And then we have the muscles that support the ovaries and the reproductive system. So we have the mesovarium, which suspends the ovary and attaches at the hilus in here, which I'll go in and kind of poke and prod at it a little bit later. And then we have the I can't pronounce this one very well, mesosalpinx, I think is how you say it. But it suspends the oviduct, so it's like kind of in the middle here somewhere. And then higher up we have the mesometrium, and that suspends the uterus and all of the other posterior parts. And then what we don't have included in our bovine reproductive tract is the cervix, which is below the uterine body, which would be somewhere down here, and then below that would be the vagina, and then below that would be the external genitalia. Okay, so I'm going to start out with the ovary, and the ovary's job is to release the ova and hormones. So on the outside of the ovary, you can see the tunica albuginea, and then a little bit farther in, you have the surface epithelium, and then right next to that, we have, if you can see this, the cortex, which contains the yellow bodies, as you can see right there. And this is where the ovarian structures grow and develop. And then inside of that, we have the medulla, which contain the blood vessels, lymphs, and nerves, which is on the inside there. And then I'm going to switch over to the other one, if you can see. Yep, right here to the other ovary, because I couldn't find a super good Graafian follicle on the one that I cut. So right here we have the Graafian follicle, and it is fluid-filled and is the largest pre-ovulatory follicle in a cell, or in a cell-free area called the antrum. And in the antrum, the inner surface has granulosa cells which produce estrogen, and the outer surface has theca cells which have testosterone that converts the estrogen via aromatase. And in between the granulosa and the theca cells is also the basement membrane. That's again just on the inside. I'm gonna go like this. Pick it up. This is a much better one then. Well, that's interesting. I'm not really sure what that is. Can you see that? Yeah. Well, Dr. Luther, if you know, because these are like very different, And this one looks more like the ones that we were videotaping in the lab. I don't know if this is like a cyst or what is that? It almost looks like a giant yellow body. I'm not entirely sure what that is. Okay, so next I will explain the oviduct. I'm gonna do my best here because it's kind of like chopped up. So most of the fimbria got cut off, but usually we have the fimbria which catches the egg, and like we know, it comes over the ovary as so. But most of it got cut off, so it's kind of hard to show it. Anyways, after that, what the fimbria leads into is the infundibulum. So I'm gonna find that, and I'm pretty sure this is the only opening that I can find, so I'm pretty sure that's what this is right there. I can get my probe into it. As so. And that, after that comes the ampulla, which is softer, sort of like an overcooked spaghetti noodle, right there. And if we make our way down and kind of feel a little bit more, it starts to get a little bit harder, right here. And that is referred to as the isthmus, and it kind of feels like an undercooked spaghetti noodle. And where these two meet is called the ampulla-isthmus junction. And after that, if we move down a little bit more, we see the tissue that supports the oviduct, which is referred to, I'm horrible at pronouncing this, so the mesosalpinx, I believe is how you pronounce it. And that is around this area. And then if we move down a little bit farther to the point of the uterine horn, that is referred to as the uterotubule junction. Okay, I'm just gonna hop back because I was a little bit confused earlier about the ovary. Sorry to bounce back, but I don't want to go back and have to re-record the whole thing. Anyways, I think I might have figured out what this is. It's the corpus luteum, but it's just very developed. Yeah, I just wanted to go back and correct myself because I didn't know exactly what it was. And it is just because I guess I didn't expect it to be that large when I opened it up. So yeah, I just wanted to correct myself on that. Okay. So next we'll go to the uterine horns and the uterine body. So I'll start out by looking at what's called the serosa, which is the smooth part that protects the uterine horn and body. And then you can't really see on mine like we can in the example video, but the myometrium is the outer muscle layer. Mine looks pretty smooth, but usually you can see like the stripes of it. And then once we cut into, as I did over here, one of the uterine horns, which I'm a little bit confused because I don't see a whole lot, especially like the example video. But in here we have the mucosa and the submucosa, and it's a jelly-like layer that leads into the uterine endometrium. And then you have the uterine glands, which you can kind of feel them, but they secrete, you can't really see them, but you can feel them. They secrete the histotroph, which is the uterine milk. And then those glands open up in between the caruncles which you can't really see them. In between, the glands open up in between the caruncles, which is the site of placental attachment. And then from there, the chorion runs into the caruncles and creates cotyledons to create placentum. Okay, so now I'll quickly cover the uterine body. So I cut down the best I could from the uterine horn. This stuff is really tough to get through, so I think I'm just gonna leave that for now. But anyways, the uterine horns come down and they come down into the cervix, which is presented right here. And in this case, it is a transverse fold because it's a bovine. And that comes down into the cranial vagina, which then leads into the vestibule, which then leads down into the hymen, which we obviously don't have because it got cut off.